Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at the new Arteza Everblend Ultra markers. So Arteza has had their markers out for a couple of years, the old style Everblend marker, and pay no attention to this band on here. That's just a swatch I put on the markers to help it, help me identify the colors a little easier because the names are really hard to read. So when they came out with these Everblend Ultra markers, I would say probably, I think it was early 2021, maybe late 2020, they were showing up at their website. They were very expensive, and then the old style of Everblend markers were just getting sold out and not being restocked. So it seemed like they were kind of revamping the whole line, which I did contact the person that I knew over at Arteza, and they said they were improving the line and kind of reformulating it. And I'd heard they were going to be reformulating the line last year, but I think with the pandemic, it just took them a long time to get everything everything changed over. And I was just kind of wondering, are these really any different? What did they change? What is better? And today we're going to go over that. And that way, if you were curious, you will know. And if you are considering these markers, you'll have a little bit more information about them. I'm also going to move my light a little bit. So let's take a look at the markers. They come in these kind of hard shell boxes that also double as a stand, which I love it when the packaging is actually useful. So it's very easy to fold that down to a little stand set on your table so you can see your markers at a glance, and you can also see the color swatch. And I do like this color swatch because the print's slightly larger on the color swatch, so it's a little bit easier for me to read. I always had a hard time reading the names on the markers. I would just go by numbers, and I'll show you the swatch of my 120 set here of the original Everblend markers. I just wrote the numbers down because I could not read the names on the markers, so I would just glance by the numbers. If you're younger than me, if you have better eyesight than me, you might not have a problem with that, but for me, the print is so small, especially when you've got like saffron yellow and sunflower yellow, they almost look like they're the same words because the print is so tiny. So when I made out the swatch, I just kind of put it in order how I thought the colors would blend well together. And I had no problems with the markers. The markers were pretty nice. So what we're going to do is actually take a look at the new versus the old marker, and I'm just going to get a piece of white paper to put down so you'll be able to see the tips a little bit better. And so let's look at the new one. Let's zoom in a little bit. So like the old markers, and I'm just going to grab one of my ones that I didn't add a swatch to just to compare. We have the words on the side. It tells you there's a fine tip. Fine tip is indicated with a band, and then the broad tip doesn't have a band, but there's also a little picture. It shows the fine point and the chisel point. So these do not have brush tips. They have just recently, in the last couple of weeks, come out with brush tip markers, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But I don't have them, so I can't really speak to them. And I want to use different colors here, just so I make sure I don't misplace them. So again, we've got the triangle color chip that has the name and number, and then same on the old style. As you can see, the tips are pretty much identical. They've got a chisel and they've got a fine tip. Now, I did like on the old style how they actually had the nib that has the fine tip was actually color-coded. I like that. The other ones are gray. I'm not sure why they changed that. I thought that was kind of nice, but they did for whatever reason. And then that's all there is for wording on the old style marker. On the new style marker, though, they actually have printing on one of the other sides. These are a fairly large triangular barrel, which you may like or you may not like. And then on the new style, they actually print the name like that as Sea Urchin Red, R23. They've got some other information, alcohol-based dye ink, non-toxic, conforms to ASTM. They have this product plants trees, American company, designed in USA. Over here it just says PRC. That basically means this is made in China. It's made in the People's Republic of China, which I feel that Arteza tries to downplay that, but like actually most alcohol markers are made in either China, Japan, Vietnam, made in Asia. I don't know if any American made. I don't think Prismacolor is made in the USA. Maybe, I'm not sure. But most markers are made over there where they have all the infrastructure and factories for that. So there's one improvement, having all the information printed here, and that way if you misplace your caps, if you have them both uncapped, you can see what color you have. So that's an improvement. I like that. Otherwise, the caps are the same, the nibs are the same, the bodies are the same. it's very, very similar. That's a one improvement that I see though. Now, one thing I noticed about these markers, and let's see, that's a new one, I want to put that in there, is that they have changed the numbering system. So that's something that's completely different with the Everblend Ultras. And it was also kind of confusing because it was hard to tell whether, you know, how they were going to compare with the older markers. So what I did was I actually, I've got the 36 set here. One change also is that what it comes in. So instead of coming in like a plastic container with plastic disposable trays, so you could save them if you wanted to, this actually comes in a cardboard case with a stand that has dividers. So it's very easy to keep your markers organized in your blending orders or however they come, which they actually kind of come arranged in blending order, which is nice. So that could be an improvement. It could be not an improvement. Depends on what you think. Whereas the 60 set would come in a set like this, and then I just got a separate set to put my grays and portrait set in. So it just depends on what you like. These are, I think, a better case, but it does take you a little more time to get them in those little elastic loops. You know, if you pull one out, it's not as quick to. Well, I just pulled this one out, so. You know, you kind of a two-hand job to put them back, basically. It's a small thing, but it might be a big thing to you. But I do like these cases. I think that these, especially the 60, or what is it, 72 case. I really like this, the cloth 72 cases. They probably still sell the cases, though, if you wanted to change them over. That would be completely up to you. The larger case, which I have my 120 set in, is a little bit, it feels a little like floppier just because it's a larger case. I do like the 72 cases quite a bit. All right, so I went through on the colors that I could find that were matches from the 36 set that I have and the 120 set I have, and also the skin tone and grays. I went through and compared by color name. So some of the color names are the same. So I would say if you have like the 120 set of the old Arteza markers and you are kind of curious about the blending chart, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, you can actually take your marker swatch. You'll need to look at the names, though. You can't just go by number. You'll have to look at the names of the markers, and then you could swatch out by name, and then you could write down the numbers of the new markers and the old markers, and then you could figure out how they convert. Now, they're not perfect matches. Like if you look at Periwinkle, the old Periwinkle is much darker than the new Periwinkle. If you look at Aurora Pink, the old Aurora Pink is a little more bluish, and the new Aurora Pink is a little more corally. Lilac, the old Lilac is slightly more pink. The new one is slightly more bluish. Sunflower, they're fairly close, but the new Sunflower is warmer and a little more orangey, whereas the old Sunflower is a little more neutral. Pumpkin Orange is a fairly good match. I feel like the new Pumpkin Orange is a little more saturated. Sky Blue is a pretty good match from new to old. The new one might be a little bit more green, not too different. Cactus, the new Cactus is darker. Peony Pink, the new Peony Pink is darker. Goldstone Red, the new Goldstone Red is darker. Now they had white quartz. They had an old marker called white quartz and a new marker called they had an old marker called quartz white and a new marker called white quartz. They're not the same color. I'd swatched them, but I just crossed it out because they're not the same color. And the same thing, they had an old marker called pearl and they have a new marker called cream pearl. They're not the same color, so I just swatched them out. For some reason, I swatched Wisteria twice. The new Wisteria is more bluish and the old Wisteria has more of a reddish undertone. Sapphire Yellow, the old Sapphire Yellow is more of like a lemon yellow and the new Sapphire Yellow is just darker. The old Cerise Pink is like a dark kind of fuchsia magenta color and the new Cerise Pink is kind of a hot pink. So, you know, some of them are pretty close. So I think if you wanted to do that, if you had the old Arteza markers and you want to use their new blending system, you want to see how that works, it might make you understand your colors a little bit better, you can do that. And I'll show you that chart in a minute. I've got it pulled up on my computer. So then I decided that I would compare it by looks. I didn't compare by numbers, but I compared by looks of the old and new markers, and I just did a little blend test. And this is on the Arteza marker paper, by the way. So this is the old, blending it by putting down the lightest color, then adding the medium color, then the darkest color, then going backwards, blending over again. The new color, the new greens did blend like a little bit better. And then there's the old reds and new reds, just going by eyeballing them, not going by the color names because I thought the color names were kind of off. The new colors, the new markers did blend a little bit better, so maybe there's a little bit more glycerin in the mix, I'm not sure. But then I decided to do a real blending test using a stamped image on Nina Classic Crest cardstock, which I find to be the best for blending. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. So these are the old markers, And these are the new markers. Keep in mind, I do not have the brush tips. These are the chisel and bullet, so I had to rely on the chisel a lot for the blending. I really didn't see that much of a benefit in a real life application on a blending cardstock. Maybe slightly better in the reds. Red is a tough color to blend. I think the brush tips would have made a really big difference with how they blended versus, you know, but I think going chisel and bullet, putting two chisel markers and two bullet markers up against each other, I don't think there's really that big of a difference. In fact, yeah, I think they blended about identically the same. So I don't think the ink is really different enough for you to justify buying the Everblend Ultras if you already have the Everblends, unless you're going to get the brush tips. So I mentioned the color chart and why that might be interesting. When I first saw these markers, I was very interested because it looks like they were going over to a very logical blending system. So as you can see, instead of it just being a random number, like in my original swatches, where it's just like A401, A403, you know, they're just kind of like random numbers that almost kind of seem like they fell on the Shinhan marker system, but not quite. Just going by the last 2 or 3 digits. Now they have like Y03, Y15, Y22, Y39, YR for like yellow red, and then R for reds, and then RP for red purple. They got much more logical. BRs for brown. So kind of like how the Ohuhu brush markers are, and how Altenew, and I think I'm wondering, I can't remember off the top of my head if Artify did that too. But, you know, getting into a more logical situation, like, okay, that's a green yellow, that's a, you know, like, I think Biennial does that as well. You know, they have a little bit more of a logical pattern. So when I was first hearing about the Everblend Ultra, I saw a, I'm just going to bring my computer over because I think I can zoom in and stuff with the computer. I'm just going to push that like that so you can see my screen. I'll have to look in the monitor to see what I'm doing because I can't really see. So now on their website, they actually do have the brush tip markers listed. They didn't yesterday. This is like brand new as the time I'm filming. They have the white barrel ones, which are the bullet chisel, and they have the black barrel ones, which are the brush and the brush and chisel. And they all go with the same color, same color categories. Now here what I'm going to do is look at the Arteza color chart. Now does that look familiar to you? Because as soon as I saw that, it looked very familiar to me. And you can download that in a black and white version that you can color if you want to, hand color. So if you wanted to cross-reference the names of your old markers with the names of the new markers and write down those new marker numbers and use that for blending purposes, you could do that. Now look at this. This is the Copic color wheel, which it's laid out very similar to the Arteza one. Now if I go down here, Copic does their markers where they've got their color family, which would like be BG, Y, YR, that sort of thing. So they got that, same as Arteza. They've got the blending group, which is the first digit in your numbers. So this is within a coloring family, this will be the blending group refers to saturation, or how bright or how dull a color is. And then they've got their specific value at the end, which is how light or dark a color is. Now with Copics, the higher the number, the darker the color. And the lower the number, the lighter the color. Now in the Arteza, they've got color family, same as Copic, blending group, same as Copic, intensity value, and here they go opposite. Their highest number is going to be your lightest color in Arteza, and your lowest number is going to be the darkest color. So that is that's very illogical to me. That's very unintuitive. So if you're used to Copics, and you're trying to follow this system, I think it's going to kind of flip your brain around weird. So just watch out for that. I don't know if they did that on purpose so that they could say they're not copying Copic or what, but it just is kind of strange. Now you will be able to match a lot of the colors by names. If you use the color chart, like say, I'm just going to pull up their 144 marker. The biggest set they have in the brush markers on the website right now is 36. I'm assuming if those sell well, they're going to go with the larger set. And also the price dropped. When the 144 first came out, it was, I'm thinking it was around $400. and maybe it was 72, that's $400. It was crazy. Right now they have the list price at $232 and they have the regular price at $168. If you've been following bullet and chisel budget markers for any amount of time, you know that generally they're about 50 cents a marker. So these are on the high end of the bullet chisel markers, but they always have been. Even their original Everblends, I think their like 120 set was always around $120. So they were always around $1 a marker, but like Ohuhu and Biennial, they were always been around 50 cents a marker. And I think they're very similar quality. If I get the chance to review the brush tip markers, I will gladly do that, although I don't know if Arteza will want me to after this review. But I'm always honest. They sent me these markers for free to review. But as always, I'm going to be honest. I don't think they're bad markers. I just think for the price, I would kind of almost expect a brush tip. Now they are, with the brush tip markers, they are like 36 is like about $89. So I'm hoping they're the higher quality brush tip markers and not the compressed fiber. I'm hoping they're more of the foam rubber like Copic and Blick Studio and Biennial are. So we'll have to see. If anybody has those and they want to comment down below, I'd love to hear if they're more like the Copic brush nibs or if they're more like the Ohuhu brush nibs, because that makes a difference. You know, it would definitely be worth it if you're getting more of a Copic quality nib. So you can see here that a lot of these colors names look familiar if you already have the original Ohuhu Everblend markers. So that's what I mean about you being able to transcribe everything out, and then you could write down, okay, blush pink, you could swatch it out with the old blush pink number and then write RP16. And then you could kind of follow along with their blending chart that I showed you here and see how they follow along in the Arteza color wheel, and that might help you get better blends. You can download a black and white version right from the sales page of this. Like if I scroll down on this page, hopefully you can see. You scroll down to the bottom down here and download the color wheel here. There's a color version and a blank version right there for you to grab on the Arteza website. So I'll link that in the video description so you can find it as well. But with that 144 chart, you'll be able to transcribe, I think, all of the colors. Now, they did rename the grays, which that kind of was one con for me for the grays in the original Everblend markers, because they didn't use like warm gray, cool gray, neutral gray, green gray. They went with very camo green, carbon black, pewter gray, weathered gray, sea salt gray, classic gray, you know, rather than just give me cool grays, give me warm grays, give me neutral grays, you know, and 1 through 10, you know what I mean, or 1 through 9, 0 through 9. That would be much more useful to me, and that's what they did with the new naming on the new Everblend markers, which I think is a great improvement, because these are very arbitrary names. It's very difficult to tell with grays what you're getting. That's what I liked about the Arctic's gray set in particular. The naming and the numbering was so logical, and I think honestly the reason I don't use the Arteza markers that often is because I find the numbering and the naming system to be completely illogical, that if I don't trust the color on the color chips, that's why I ended up making these color swatches to put on the barrels of the markers. I mean, their matches are not bad compared to some others. Like, I have to say that their color cap matches is much better than the Arctic's color cap matches. So they don't do a bad job at that, but it's you really can't trust the color caps on any of them, really, just because when you're trying to get a blend, if a color is a little more red or a little more blue than what you expect, it can really throw off your blend and make it, you know, not work. So the fact that they didn't use a conventional numbering system or even a logical one the first go round is the reason I really don't reach for them, because they're more difficult. They take me longer to use because I always have to look back at my swatch. I can't trust the names of the numbers like I can with some other brands. So, another thing I wanted to just kind of show you, because I've heard that they've improved the nibs. There are replacement nibs for the bullet and the chisel that you can use with either of your markers. So if you've worn out your nibs from the old version, which I can't imagine you would before the ink would run out, you could just buy the nibs for those. I wish they offered the brush nibs, because then people could just like swap out their chisel nib, because quite frankly, I think that's what I think a lot of people would prefer to have a bullet nib and a chisel nib and not a chisel and a brush. So you might even want to do that. I'm hoping that they offer refill ink bottles, because I can't figure out their naming system. Their numbering system doesn't go with any other marker that I've used. Usually I can say, well, most budget markers are, they fall in the Shinhan color family marker system, or they fall in the same one as Altenew, and you can buy the Altenew reinkers, or they, you know, the Shinhan Art and Fly are the same. You can get reinkers there. But I haven't figured it out. Maybe, you know what, I haven't compared these to the Spectrum Noir markers. I probably should do that and see how they compare to that. Why don't I do that and come back in a second and tell you what I find out. All right, I did compare with my Spectrum Noir, and they use different numbers, and they don't go the 2 digits afterwards. I looked at my Copic swatch, and I think that actually disregarding the last number, you could use your Copics with your Everblend Ultras in the main. Like if I look at the R3s, R35, R36, if I look at R35 in Copic, very similar. R36 would definitely blend in there. R32 would be kind of between those three. I could use that for a blend. So I think looking at your numbers, you actually could blend these pretty easily with Copics. That's the closest convention that I can find with the Everblend Ultra markers with their numbering system is Copics, except the last digit is in reverse. So you know, if you have a bunch of Copics and you have these, you could definitely go by the letter and the first digit and kind of find your blending friends. So that might be useful if you've got a smattering of Copics already and you just want to kind of beef up the set. I still think I would probably wait for like that's a BG15, BG19. Of course, the 9 would equal a 0 in Copic, so you could blend, you know. Yeah, look at that, because a BG10 in Copic would kind of equal a BG19 in, although that looks a little bit darker. You could definitely blend those 3 colors together. Yeah, it seems like Copic is the closest convention, and I did actually have the Copic color wheel right here in my. This is my swatch binder where I have my open stock markers. So I have my Art and Fly, I have my Spectrum Noir, Altenew, Touchnew, a bunch of different markers I don't have huge collections of that I keep all together in the rack behind me that you see like in the Sat Chat videos. I keep all the swatches in here so I can just grab it if I need it while I'm creating my Blick. My Blick markers are here. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're used to Copics, these are going to make sense except for the last digit. And I'd be really curious to see the brush markers. It would be great if they really are a Copic dupe, because they have a more logical numbering system than a lot of other markers. They're way more logical than the originals. But if you already have the originals, I don't think I would run out and buy the bullet and chisel tip ones. I think I would say maybe wait for the brush tips. And I would wait, if you're thinking you want to do the whole set, I would definitely not try to piece it together from the 36 sets. I would wait until they come out with a full range so you're not getting duplicates. I did look, they have a lot of specialized sets that that will go like for architecture or for gray tones or for portrait or for tropical, things like that. But there is a lot of duplications between those little sets. I think I would wait until they have the full set of the brush tips. If you're looking to purchase them, you'll pay less per marker and you won't end up with a bunch of duplicates. And hopefully they're going to come out with some inks. I would much rather have them come out with inks than, you know, 4 packs of a single color of marker, which they did with the originals. I just think that's pretty wasteful. You got all that plastic. It's a perfectly good marker. Now, the other thing you want to consider is the triangular barrel. I don't find, like, oddly enough, I have the Altenew, a few of the Altenew markers, and like the Arctic markers, and just the side that I find, even though this isn't that much bigger, I find it much more comfortable to hold the Altenew marker than the Everblend. And I'm not exactly sure why it is, but they just seem to be a little bit more slender. And these also have brush tips. I like these markers a lot. They're a really nice brush and bullet marker. I don't think they're that expensive, especially if you compare them to Copics, but it would be interesting if the Arteza brush ones had the quality nib of the Altenew. Those are really nice. But anyway, I do find these a little less comfortable to hold, and these caps come off. Let me grab one of the new ones, just see how the caps pull off. The caps aren't too bad to come off and on, so that's good, and it's easy to to get the caps on without damaging the nibs because they're only going to go on one way. They will go on, well actually they'll go on 3 ways, but it's easy to line them up so you don't damage a nib. I like that. If you need everything to be perfectly lined up, you'll have to, you might want to pay attention of what way the lower part of the marker cap is going if that bothers you. But I do think they're an improvement with a color name numbering system over the old style. And I like that they have the color name on the body of the marker itself in case you have several things uncapped at once. But I would have to say that other than that, I really don't see an advantage of the Everblend Ultras to the original Everblend markers. They seem to be, other than those 2 things, they seem to be equivalent. And I actually prefer that they have the color-coded nib end. I think that was better in the old ones. So quality-wise, I don't think they're really any different, but I would love to try out the brush markers and see how those brush tips are, if they're the compressed fiber or if they're the foam rubber ones. That would be a big game changer if they have the better quality nibs. So you'll have to be continued on that. I do have to say that their new case might be a benefit, just because it's so easy to throw those markers back in there, and it's nice that it's got a little display stand while you're working, so you can see everything you have right out in front of you. And I do believe, I'm just going to check really quick on the big set. I think the big set also, yep, the big set also has a box like that, so you're getting your storage. You don't have to buy extra storage or extra display for your markers, which is nice. It's a savings for sure. But there you have it, my review on the Everblend Ultra art markers. And I hope it was helpful. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.